Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, finally got you guys the rank guide. This video takes me forever to do, by the way, so I'd really appreciate your support on this video, whether it's liking, whether it's sharing with a friend, commenting, all of that good stuff. But yeah, this is this season inside of a ranked. So if you guys know, finally got pro last season, so this is just from my experience. Also a ton of pro data. There's a lot of research going into this, tournaments, match arenas, etc. So hopefully you guys can learn from this overall. So without further ado, I just want to jump ahead into it. So as always, I'll be putting timestamps in the description in terms of the game mode and specific map for what you'll need for the cheat sheet. And here you'll have dry season on your screen right here. So with dry season and bounty, pretty much every single game mode, Meeple and Mina are going to be pretty much the best. It depends on what game mode you're on. So for Meeple, you want to be using the dice gadget, etc. For Mina, you want to be using the like buster bubble kind of gadget, which will be able to protect you. And Jean's just solid into everything. Byron again compare well with a lot of different things. Does get countered by other snipers, but just pairs really well with a lot of different brawlers. And then Karza and Jae Young. Karza's a little bit harder to make work in bounty since the invisible gadget nerf, but still a really good asset, and especially really good at getting the blue stars. So with dry season, you don't really get too many aggro picks, to be honest. I mean, there is an odd aggro pick. Say for example, if you just blatantly pick like Piper, Byron, and then a Sprout, obviously you're going to get countered by like a Mortis or Liddy or something like that, but for the most part, you can pretty much get away with going like 3 kind of control brawlers. It's got to make sure one of those control brawlers at least got some form of knockback or something, because aggro is a very control meta. So for example, at least make sure you got like an Angelo that can jump away, or a Gus that can at least block himself and push back the opponents with his shield, or like a Brock that can at least jump away or break open the map. You know what I mean? You at least want one type of brawler that can escape in some type of way. But dry season for me, it's all about collecting that blue star and then just pushing back and letting the opponents push into you. Next up for bounty, we have Hideout. Here's your best picks on your screen right here. So for Hideout, again, the same 3 brawlers are going to be the best. Jean's just good into everything. And then Hideout, I really like Gus because there's quite a few aggressive ideas, especially in the pro meta in Hideout. But Gus is kind of actually good, well, in bounty specifically, it's good into aggro things because it's got really easy to hit projectiles. So if anyone wants to go any type of aggressive idea, whether it be Kaze, Ollie, Max, you know, Gus can defend himself pretty well against all of those. Jae Young as well is really good because for Jae Young, he's good in bounty because he can collect the blue star pretty fast, right? And he's just good and consistent in an open area, so he's still pretty good in the bounty meta specifically. But I've got to talk about Nani. Nani is definitely the biggest improve in the meta for me. Maybe not in pro play, like, because pros can counter Nani with like a Max or a Jae Young, but I think in your ranked games, unless you're literally playing at pro level, you won't really find many people being able to counter a Nani. So Nani is very, very good right now. Does a lot of damage and really fast supercharge rate. Gray is returning back to the meta a lot more now since a lot of kit cheese is gone. You know, just enabled Gray to be a bit better. Ollie's very good in Hideout, by the way. The way that you want to play Ollie is make sure you're receiving damage. Try and pair it with support brawler, but just take a lot of damage as long as you're not dying through receiving that damage, if that makes sense. So take a lot of damage, fall back. Take a lot of damage, fall back, get your super through that, and then you eventually get your hypercharge. So that's why Ollie's very good on this map in particular. And then late picks, I don't really consider any pick to be a good late pick on this map. Next up, we have Layer Cake. Here, your best picks on your screen right here. So for Layer Cake, the meta has shifted again a bit from last time because Juju is like one of the best brawlers on this map. This used to always be a Juju map, and then because of the aggressive meta, it kind of shifted away. And now again, she's one of the best brawlers easily on this map thanks to her hypercharge and just ability to always cheese with her long grass attack. Kaze is very good again because she can be super sneaky, a lot of bushes, and she can collect that blue star pretty fast. Again, I think what a lot of people make the mistake of in Layer Cake is that they'll go too many snipers. I say this every single time. Snipers aren't even good, especially like Mandy and Piper. They're just not good in the bounty meta anymore because you can just use the walls and push up the map. It's just as simple as that. As long as your teammates are somewhat backing you up with your aggression, you can just overwhelm the opponents a lot. So what I'm noticing as well, there's a lot of Doug cheese on this map in particular. So Grey Doug or just Doug in general, grouping up, it's really hard to stop, especially because you don't typically go like damage brawlers here. Cordelius is good and not like he's obviously good into tanks, but he can just be used as a standalone brawler because of the jump gadget. Can get a lot of pressure. Squeak, I go pretty early in the draft because it's just a lot of it's a map with a lot of choke points, so Squeak gets a lot of value here. And in terms of late picks, there are some disgusting late picks on this map in particular. You gotta be careful of Lily. Ziggy can be a very good one, so make sure in your draft that you got some type of fast brawler, or at least some brawler that can open a wall. You know, if I can counter a thrower like Ziggy, you've got Trunk that can be very disgusting into a lot of compositions as well. And same with Ali. So if a squishy brawler's Ali is a dream to play with because of the amount of bushes. So yeah, a lot of options to go. And finally, moving on to Shooting Star Bounty here, your best picks on your screen right here. So for Shooting Star, again, like the meta doesn't really shift too much, but I'm noticing that Nani is pretty much a go-to pick no matter what. Again, the pros will counter Nani through like Max, Jae Young, etc., but you can just go Nani in your ranked games and you will be fine to go no matter what. Jean is one of the best picks because no matter what, you can just pick a Jean good at countering Nani, good at actually countering other snipers thanks to his gadget, and you can play Jean as like a mid or a lane. Juju as well, you can play in the mid and can be really dangerous. Max, very good in Shooting Star because Max, a good Max player, can counter every sniper pretty much in the game, especially thanks to the Hypercharge buff. So Shooting Star is just basically about trying to equip yourself with two of the best snipers available when the bans are done, and then figuring out what mid you want really, whether it's like a Gray, whether it's an Angelo, can kind of play mid/lane, Carl in the middle, Tick as a later pick. So yeah, get those good snipers out of the way and then figure out the mid later on. So now moving on to Dribble, starting off with center stage here, your best picks on your screen right here. So center stage, a very bushy map, but surprisingly not actually as aggressive as you would think. In the pro meta, there probably are a few aggressive ideas, but from what I've been playing in ranked, it's a very control-based map overall. So Otis is one of the best brawlers in the game right now. Specifically on this map, you can shut down a lane really easily. So what suggests in center stage, you at least need one brawler that can guarantee just constantly shoot the lane, because there'll be people sneaking in. So whether that's like a Crow, whether that's a Mo, Ruffs, Otis, there's so many brawlers here which you just amber. You need to be at least keeping guard of one lane, and then your teammates can probably sneak up the other lane and do something there. So that's why I always suggest on this map. But Mo is definitely one of the best brawlers inside of the game right now. Really good in center stage, because the thing about Mo is that there's hardly any true counters to him. So you can just be safe in going Mo pretty early on in the draft. Got a good hypercharge as well. And you can switch star powers depending on whether the opponent's outrange you or not. So that's why I really like Mo. Byron can be pretty good in ranked, mainly because it's just really easy to hit shots with and pairs with a lot of brawlers. Probably a bit riskier on center stage, but you can definitely go with that. Max, Jae Young. So you want a bit of everything in your composition, but you want to be making sure that you're kind of covering all bases in a sense. Like you need to have like a damage dealer in case the enemy goes like later on in the draft like a tank or something, but then you don't want to go too many damage dealers because the opponents will go like a Squeak or a Thrower or something control based, which will screw you over. So make sure you got some aggression, make sure you got some damage, make sure you got some control. Try and get all three of these inside of your comp. Next up we have Pinball Dreams here, best picks on your screen right here. So Pinball Dreams, again, it will be like a bit of rock paper scissors in terms of like the throwers. You can see that Willow is one of the best picks here, mainly because I will say Willow is overrated, but the pros do like Willow because no matter what, you will get value, and you can always at least contest yourself against other throwers. But there is the case if, you know, if they got Willow early pick, then you can just counter Willow through another throw, whether that be a Larry, whether that be a Barley, etc. So do bear that in mind. So with Pinball Dreams, I will say that aggressive brawlers can be pretty annoying here. So that, like, you know, like a Hank down either your left that can push up to the enemy wall, or if there's an enemy Hank in your right hand bit, it's very toxic, or like an Ash or something. So you got to bear that in mind in terms of your picks overall. So you want to be, again, making sure that you've got at least one damage dealer in there. You want at least one aggressive kind of idea at least, or if you have late pick, you could probably get away with even going like free control brawlers, honestly. Like this meta is very, very control based, but at the same time, you don't want to give your opponents like a free Ali pick or a free Kenji pick or a free Shade pick or something like that. So you got to at least weigh your options pretty well. Next up for Brawl, we have Sneaky Fields, your best picks on your screen right here. So for Sneaky Fields, again, plays pretty similar to center stage, where you want at least like, so for Sneaky Fields, the big mistake that a lot of people make is that they don't go brawler that can at least hold the grass pretty well. So it's all right having, you know, 3 brawlers that are good at scouting, but if you have no brawler that has good presence in the middle, then you're just screwed. You're always going to lose a bit mid-battle, and you're always going to be under pressure. So what I mean by that, like, yeah, it's all good maybe having like a Ruffs, Mo, and an Otis in the same composition. Well, all of these brawlers, I mean, Otis is kind of good, but you get what I mean. They're all kind of like chip brawlers, and they don't actually stand their ground in the middle. Whereas I would rather prefer even like a Carl in the middle, where he can be a lot more dangerous with the fire gadget, or like an Ollie in the middle, or even like a Chester, a brawler that's a bit more tankier in terms of health, you know, Chester or something. you got to at least have one of those brawlers, guys, or else you're going to be pretty cooked in terms of like overall pressure. Because imagine if the opponents, like, they could just go 3 tank brawlers and just keep overwhelming you, and if you're stuck in spawn, they're going to eventually find an opening and score. So there's a big mistake that people make on sneaker fields. But again, the same old, where you've got all these different types of mid brawlers you want to go. You want a damage dealer in there, and then depending on whether you have first or last pick, making sure that you're covering all your bases. But last pick's normally the best here, because you can either get a really good like squeak game or a control brawler game, or you can get a good assassin game. So 6th pick is dangerous. And lastly for Dribble, we have Triple Dribble here. Best picks on your screen right here. So for Triple Dribble, as always, is a very thrower heavy map, and I think with all of the assassins being nerfed, you can be pretty safe in just going throwers pretty early on in the draft. Even like a Barley, it's pretty rare that you'll actually be as countered unless Ali's in the draft. So make sure that you're probably banning Ali, especially if the opponents have a last pick, or if you want to go thrower yourself. So do bear that in mind. So the good last picks, already going from like Ziggy is insane on this map. Ali, Kenji, and a Trunk are very, very dangerous. Again, in the early drafts, you know, you want to probably pick like a thrower or something that's just a bit good into everything. So you got like your Juju, you got like Mo, Ruffs. There's so many brawlers that are just good into everything. And then for your 2-3 pick, you want like some synergy going on. So whether that's like a Max and then something a little bit more aggressive, whether that's someone with a bit of range, you gotta send probably the more range brawler down your right hand side. You can see it's a bit more open. You want to send your thrower in the middle, and then you want like a damage dealer, because tanks aren't really the best. But then you do got to bear in mind that you've got to be able to deal with the synergy pick, maybe of like a Hank and like a Jaeyoung, or a Shade and something else aggressive like a Max. There are quite a few synergy picks here that can really overwhelm those support brawlers. So yeah, Triple Dribble is a very cheesy map for throwers. Okay, so now moving on to Gem Grab. Double Swoosh are your best picks on your screen right here. So for Double Swoosh, again with Double Swoosh, it's a very like chip based map, and there's actually not too many great aggressive ideas here, if I'm honest. This is a very control based map. So in terms of your mid brawler, there's quite a few mid brawlers you can go here. You've got the a good thing about Double Swoosh, you can easily put like, you know, generic lane brawler, you can easily put them in mid. So whether that's like an Otis, whether that's a Crow, you can even put Amber in the middle, Janet, Ruffs in the middle or lane, Sandy in the middle or lane. So you can kind of swap a lot of the time. So that's why I kind of like two of these types of brawlers, because depending on the matchup, you can just switch around your mid brawlers. I mean, it depends where you are in your ranked kind of. If you're like above masters, you will be able to get away with that. Below that, your randoms won't be able to understand switching whatsoever. So with Double Swoosh, probably the biggest changes is that I think Tara is a lot worse off in the meta personally. I think with the supercharge rate nerf, it's actually affected her a lot more, but you can still get away with it in ranked, especially if you're below like Masters 2. Tara is still pretty good, but there's a lot of good Tara counters on this map. Janet is one of the best mids here, just because she can easily survive as a gem carrier. So with this map in particular, you want to send your more ranged brawler down the right hand side. So whether that's like an Otis, whether that's an Amber, Pam, they want to be scouting that bush down the right hand side, and then normally more aggressive. Well, it depends actually. If you've got like a Pell or someone that needs to sit near the gem carrier, so like a Penny or something a little bit defensive, then you might want to send them down the left, because at least you've got that kind of coverage with your mid brawler. But yeah, there's not a lot of aggressive ideas here, to be honest. Next up for Gem Grab, we have Gem Fort here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Gem Fort is a very cheesy map, as I always say here. It's all about establishing that mid control, and then always maybe having like one brawler on the flank, trying to create some pressure. So it's all about probably sending like 2 brawlers in the middle, trying to get that mid, as I said. But in terms of your best mid brawlers, like I said, it's the same type of brawlers really in the middle, whether that be like a Jaeyoung, whether it be Byron, you've got Janet, you've got Crow in the middle, Gus, Pam. You want these brawlers that are like solid in the middle, that can defend themselves, whether you're facing off against any aggressive ideas, some type of like escape mechanism, some type of way to heal themselves or get away. Pam is probably the best brawler in terms of, well, in terms of improvement in the meta, but she's very good in Gem Fort because there's a lot of safe spots for her turret, and she's really good into the other mids. That's the main thing, and she can defend herself because of her Scrap Sucker gadget. Again, Tara is still a really good brawler in Gem Fort, but I have been noticing she has been slipping down a fair bit because there's just better lane brawlers available, and you've also got the likes of like Amber being able to counter her. You've got like Otis being pretty good into a Tara nowadays. You've got Ruffs to open up the map. There's just better lane options out there, but she's still pretty good. Sandy can counter as well. Mo can outrange a Tara, especially with a vision gear. But again, it's all about trying to surprise the opponents. And at the same time, if you're a gem carrier, or just always being aware that, you know, there could be opponents sneaking in behind at any point, because that is pretty much what happens every time here, is that you lose track of one opponent, and then they're behind you, and then you've lost the game. Next up for gem grab, we have Hard Rock Mine, and here your best picks on your screen right here. So I actually forgot to include Rico here, but yeah, Rico's not really used too much in pro play. That's the main thing. But if you're a good Rico player, you can definitely pop off here, by the way. So in terms of Hard Rock Mine overall, this is definitely the best Roughs map, because again, Rico used to be good here. Roughs is of course equivalently good, and he's really easy to hit shots with thanks to his projectile speed buff not too long ago. So Max, this is the best Max map, funny enough, because I think there's a lot of space here, so more room to wiggle, more room to like pair up your super with a brawler that can then push up to the enemy's back walls. That's what it's all about in Hard Rock Mine. Of course, not letting anyone sneak in behind you here, but then getting behind and getting close to their wall to push the opponents as far back as possible. So as I always kind of say in gem grab in particular, have a strong mid brawler that can defend themselves and not get easily countered. You want one kind of brawler that's kind of surveying the area, switching lanes, making sure that no one's pushing up to your gem carrier. And then you always want an aggressive brawler on this map in particular. So whether the aggressive brawler is like a Shade last pick, whether it's a Mortis last pick, whether it's an Ash, whether it's a Kaze early on the draft, whether it's a Trunk is very good on this map, whether it's an Ali or a Hank, you need one of these brawlers at least. It doesn't even matter if it's two tank counters and you have last pick. I mean, you can maybe go control there, but you get what I mean. You just need something that can at least alleviate a bit of pressure from your gem carrier. And lastly, for gem grab, we have Undermine here. Your best picks are Undermine on your screen right here. So for Undermine, it's a bit of a weird one, because it literally just depends on what matchup you have. So making sure that you're like, definitely for this map in particular, as soon as you're loaded into that game after the draft, making sure that you're seeing which lane to go to try and get your best matchup. It's all about maybe like your mid trying to help you down the lane to win that lane, and then all about spawn trapping. That's all it is with Undermine. So what I've been noticing is there's a bit more ranged brawlers, I would say, on Undermine now than in the past, because I think a lot of these brawlers that lack the range had the firepower with the hyper chargers, so they got away with it because, you know, they'd get that lucky break and they'd destroy everything. But now it's all about the range chipping, making sure that you're even if you lose your lane, you can then regain it back. So that's why Amber's very good on this map. That's why like Pam's really good for scouting the bushes with her attack with vision gear. That's why Janet's really good for scouting the bushes. Why Ruff's really good to break open your lane so you can't get crept up on. That's why Sandy's good, because Sandy can at least well, with the super gain back control, but also will peak a lot effectively on Undermine in particular. So Chester's actually pretty good here, because again, his main attack can easily scout. Chester's starting to be a little bit better in this meta from what I'm noticing. And last picks, I think only like an Ali and a Kenji the brawlers to really worry about. So now we're going to be moving on to Heist. Started off with Bridge Too Far here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So Bridge Too Far is a funny one for me, because I always just seem to get this wrong. I don't know, but teammates are just not really the best in terms of knowing whether to defend or whether to attack on this map. So as always, Chuck is going to be your best option, and Angelo as well, because look at the water, he can clean up really easily. And then you've got like Otis for defense. So again, the tip here with Heist is to have one defensive brawler, and then at least like either, well, you need one aggressive, you need one defensive, and then either another aggressive brawler or like an in-between. So about the aggressive brawlers that I'm talking about, you want like a Kaze, a Melody, a Lily, or something along those lines. You probably want to go these aggressive brawlers towards kind of the later stage of draft, because they can get counted on this map in particular. But again, you're kind of in between brawlers that can get a lot of damage if left alone. You've got like Amber that can defend and then turn into attack. You've got like Crow as well that can defend, build up his hypercharge, and get a lot of damage onto the safe. You can't go with your snipers as well here. Again, they can be there in between brawlers, except for Belle. Belle's like a definitely just like a cleanup brawler, but like Nani and Piper, if left alone, they can do a lot of damage on the safe in particular, and they can win their 1 versus 1 matchups quite frequently. So it's all about trying to get your best matchup. It is literally a 1 versus 1 versus 1 in the sense, like, you get what I mean. Like, you get your particular lane matchup and you need to win it as much as possible. But it all depends on the aggressive brawler, because at least for like Melody or Kaze, you can switch your matchups pretty quickly, and that can definitely throw the opponents off guard. In terms of late picks, not really a lot on show here. So next up for Heist, we have Hot Potato here. Your best picks on your screen for Hot Potato. So I will say with Hot Potato, it is definitely a lot different than the other Heist maps, because it's a very base race map, and you've got to bear that in mind in terms of your brawler picks. So with Chuck, I definitely think it's one you can counter on this map. I can easily, but I think your randoms probably will struggle facing off against it. So we'll see straight away. You know, Berry's good on this map because of his gadget, and you don't want to defend with Berry. So again, you always want one aggressive idea. You want always one brawler that can shut down really effectively. So whether that's an Otis, he's like the best one on this map. Whether it's at least like a Crow and Amber that can then turn defense into offense. You know, Crow with his hype charge. Amber can just deal a lot of damage if left alone. You want, again, a brawler that can maybe even control a little bit on this map. So whether it's like a Ruffs that can break open the map. Again, Crow's kind of that control type brawler that can poke around. But again, it's mainly about probably like double stacking your aggressive ideas, to be honest, because it will only take like one breakthrough, even on a super defensive composition, and you can deal a lot of damage on this map. Next up for Heist, we have Kaboom Canyon here. Best picks on your screen right here. So Kaboom Canyon, it very much plays out like Safe Zone. But there is like a sneaky pick here, which I'd never get the chance to play, which is Finks. Finks, for whatever reason, is just insane on this map. Mainly probably because his super is just so good at shutting down so many brawlers. And he can be very good on defense. So, yes, it's very good for that middle control, turning defense into offense, which is very good. In terms of your aggressive ideas, you need like a Kaze, a Melody. You can get like a Nanny with teleport now. I think Nanny's very underrated here. Excuse my barking dog. Very annoying. But in terms of, again, aggressive ideas, you can even go for Ali. Ali's more of like a control type brawler, in the sense like you go for kills with Ali rather than getting that pure safe damage. But again, I think this map has turned very much into a control based map. So you won't be surprised if you have like 6 brawlers that aren't really doing like a ton of absolute assassin pressure, etc. There are a few good assassins here. You got to be careful of like the Miko late picks and Lily, but that's really about it. So making sure you just get in the best brawlers you can off this list. And lastly for Heist, we have Safe Zone here. Your best picks for Safe Zone on your screen right here. So again, very similar to Kaboom Canyon. You got the likes of Angelo being very strong, Otis the best defensive brawler and some decent range to him. You got Kaze, which again can deal so much damage and get so much pressure. You got a Crow that can deal a lot of damage with the hypercharge. So again, all about trying to get your best offensive brawler. I think for me, I'd actually focus, well, it just depends on what brawlers are available that's just how we'll go. Looking at the cheat sheet, I just try and get the best brawlers on the side of best as quickly as possible. So like Otis and your Crows are going to be your best at defensive slash going into offensive brawlers. Same with Amber as well. It's just the same old Heist meta, but again, it is turning a bit more controlled, with like Eve being a lot more prevalent here. You've got the likes of Penny also being a lot more prevalent on this map, Juju being a good late pick. But then that also frees up the opportunity to go like an Ali later on, again like a Daryl later on, or a Miko. So yeah, again, making sure you got at least one aggressive brawler. But even so, on Safe Zone, you could probably just get away with going like one defensive brawler than 2 like longer range damage dealers. All right, guys, now moving on to Hot Zone here. Your best picks for Dueling Beetles on your screen right here. So what we'll say for Hot Zone, this is the featured game mode, but there's 2 maps that have been added. I've not had a chance to play them. One of them is super and serious. It's like a square fenced one, which to me just go your generic, just good Hot Zone brawlers, but also at least like a wall break or like a Lou or something that can defend easily. Again, I'm not going to go too much into it because I can't really break down that because it's a terrible map. And then there's one with a bunch of grass everywhere, so just go your scouting brawlers like a Gale, Otis, Crow, etc. And then like at least a brawler that can stay on the zone for a while. Anyways, Dueling Beetles, here are your best picks from what I've said before. So, Finks is still one of the best Hot Zone brawlers. And again, this is turning more control. So, what the biggest change is definitely Pam. Pam and her hype charge is insane. Because you can just put Pam's hype charge turret behind that wall, and it's like unstoppable. It seriously is, guys. It's so broken. It's crazy, but you're starting to see a lot more control now. You're starting to see a lot more pennies, a lot more, again, thrower picks, which is definitely a big change. You know, Draco can be good, but you need to pair it with a support brawler now, guys, because the recent nerfs to Draco it hasn't killed Draco, but it's so much more manageable than ever before. So making sure that you got one zone time brawler, so whether it's like a Finks, whether it's a Pam, whether it's like a Jay Young, something a bit more health and just overall control damage, you know the gist. Next up for Hot Zone, we have Parallel Plays here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Parallel Plays is the same mode. You want that kind of, you want it like a thrower, really, basically on this map. So whether that's a Juju, a Willow, a Barley, Larry and Laurie, there's quite a few, but of course going for the ones that can defend themselves a bit better earlier on. So again, like the Willows, the Juju and the Larrys, and Barley a bit later on in the draft. So whether that you could take them as a mid or down the left hand side to defend, and then you want an aggressive idea down the right hand side. So whether that's again, you want to pick those a bit later on in draft because they can be easily countered. So it depends. If you go for like, I don't know, big defender like an Otis or a, I don't know, like an Artie or something, it's probably not best to go an assassin. Rather, you maybe want to go, I don't know, something that can at least chip down those brawlers at range down the right hand side. So I don't know, with power plays, I'm always kind of unsure what to go, but the safest bet is always like a thrower, something a bit defensive left side, something in the middle that's just good at everything, and then aggression down the right. Next up, Hot Zone, we have open business. So I was about to say Dueling Beetles there because it plays very similar in terms of just the map style. So in terms of your best picks here, again, Meeple Mina. Ruffs is very good here, breaking open a map and just good into everything. Hank is very good here because a lot of control brawlers, and Hank can suffocate the opponents pretty easily. He can tank a lot, and what you need in Hot Zone, you kind of need like a distractor that can like soak up a lot of damage and get a lot of pressure and just sit on the zone, because that is the aim of the game. People just tend to go with like free control damage brawlers, but then these brawlers can't sit on the zone. You've got to remember that. So do bear that in mind. In terms of your late picks are pretty dangerous here, honestly. Like your Kenjis, your Shades, your throwers are late picks, so do be wary of them. You've got to have a bit of everything, whether that's wall breaker, whether it's some aggressive ideas yourself. You need to be covering the bases of the assassins and the throwers. Absolutely. Pam, again, one of the best brawlers easily here because of the hypercharge things as well. So good at controlling, you know, Moog being good at chipping, and then once he gets his hypercharge, he can take over the game. Draco, there's a lot of like grey cheese combinations happening in open business again, but it is the same Hot Zone meta. And finally, moving on to Ring of Fire here, your best picks for Ring of Fire. So you will be surprised that there aren't really a ton of snipers here. You will probably think in your lobbies, I don't know, Piper's good, Bell's good, etc. But that's the one thing that people are going wrong on, because you need those heavy, you know, zone time brawlers. So whether that's like a Finks, whether that's a Pam, again, Pam is insane in the Hot Zone meta, did predict that pretty well. Whether it is even a Crow, Crow's quite tanky in the middle with his shield gadget. You need a bit of everything. So as I always say with Ring of Fire, you need those two types of brawlers that will kind of sit at least one in the mid, then one like maybe in the left / mid. Make sure no one's sneaking in behind. And then you can even go an aggressive brawler yourself, or at least one brawler in your composition that once they're in the grass, they're going to be a big threat. So again, whether that's like a Kaze, whether that's like, I don't know, even like a Penny can be annoying in the opponent's grass. You know, something with a bit of health that can just waste a lot of the opponent's time, because you can get a dirty spawn trap going. But Penny's very good in the Ring of Fire meta, again, thanks to her recent buff and the very control-based meta. But it's not really a lot of aggressive options you got to worry about, guys. This is a very control-based map now. And now moving on to the final game mode, it is Knockout, the most boring one for me. And here are the best picks for Bell's Rock. So Bell's Rock, it's pretty of an interesting one. So I've learned a lot more Bell's Rock through playing ranked, is that you can easily get away with going to Ollie, for example, just purely getting pressure. What I like about Bell's Rock is, again, if you forcing your opponents back to those lower sections of the map, you're just going to win the game purely through pressure. So that's why I'm really liking like your Greys, your Ollies, again, because what you can do with Ollie, you can be super aggressive. And if you pair it like a Jae Young or a Byron, you're just going to be farming hype charge through receiving damage, and then once you get your hype charge, you just win the game. So I've been noticing a lot of people going Ollie still in this knockout meta. You've got like Angela that can be a good in between. So what we'll say, again, you got to be careful of the throw. A lot of people are just actually just drafting throws pretty early on, but at the same time, there are like these Doug cheesy compositions going on like crazy in knockout right now, because you can just soak up a lot of damage, and then if you pair it with any sort of aggressive idea, whether it be a Great, whether it be like a Max, or whether it be like an Ollie or something, they will just win no matter what, because the knockout meta is very like chip based, so like snipers or control brawlers, and Doug comps just run all over it. So do bear that in mind. Your late picks, I won't really have to worry about late picks too much, other than throwers, I'd say. Next up, we have Flare and Phoenix. So your best picks on your screen right here. So for Flare and Phoenix, I never know what to draft on this map, if I'm honest, and I even forgot a 6th pick here in the graphic. But with Flare and Phoenix, again, it's all about more than likely sending 2 people down the mid and then 1 down the left, but only sending a brawler down the left if they can defend themselves against like a sneaky brawler. So if the opponent's got like a Daryl or a Kit or a Lily, don't be sending your tick in the left lane, or if your teammate wants to go over there, you just got to go over there and defend him, if that makes sense, because they can just get a free kill over on that side. So with Flare and Phoenix, it's all about trying to break the opponent's grass. So that's why I like a Brock or like a Squeak, like something that can push the opponents back, because it all matters when the gas closes in. If the opponents are just much further back, you're just going to get free kills, if that makes sense. Again, your Doug composition is going to be pretty cheesy. Juju's very good on this map, but only when like Brock's not in the equation, because he can break open a lot of the grass here. So Again, making sure that you're not going too many snipers, but snipers are still good here, just one of them. Next up for knockout, we have New Horizons. See your best picks on your screen right here. So with New Horizons, again, completely control-based. There are a couple of brawlers that can sneak in terms of assassins, but it's just a lot of snipers and control-based brawlers. So Squeak's really good because you can stop the opponents from going cheesy strategies because you can shoot around walls, but then you've also got a gadget that can act as a really big heavy shot that can, just destroy a lot of those squishier brawlers. Your Barons and your Gusses are going to be really good because easy to hit and just easy to pair with and gain control. Brock is really good here because you can switch your matchup, your gadget depending on the matchup, sorry, and then you can just break open the wall most of the time and just outrange the opponents pretty simply. It's what I like to do. Jae-Young's just really good at pressuring your opponent's back. Angelo as well. It's just your same knockout brawlers. A very boring meta. But basically just pick, just depending on what your opponents pick, and just try and counter them. And lastly for knockout, we have Out in the Open here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So you can just tell by how I'm speaking about knockout is that it's a very hard game mode to like completely outcomp, and draft isn't as important in knockout in my opinion, just because it's all about finding the kills first. If you find that first kill, you pretty much win the round, guaranteed. So yeah, it's just looking at what snipers are being picked up on, trying to see if you can counter them in any way, whether that's with like a Grey, whether that's like a Squeak that can be pretty good, whether that's like a Buster, you can group up and get a lot of pressure there. Ollie, if you're a good Ollie player. Max, you can't counter those snipers. People be drawn into going a lot of snipers, but there definitely are counters out there. That's probably my biggest tip in terms of knockout, and just be making sure that you utilize like the Darryls as a late pick, for example, or a Ziggy or something along those lines. But that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. So I don't go absolutely in depth in terms of strategy with these draft guides, but I just give you guys the best picks, and in later videos I'll teach you about like your brawler matchups and how to counter the meta in general. So that'll be pretty useful in a couple of days time. So hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.